Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Let's say you're out having lunch with a friend of yours and they started describing their relationship. And they kept saying things like, well, he won't let me talk to his family. And he won't let me talk to this friend. And I don't have any money for clothes. And, he's making me do this. And, gosh, he keeps showing up late, but he never takes responsibility for it. You might tell your friend, you're dating a psychopath. You're in a dysfunctional relationship. You need to get out of it. And frankly, as somebody who has been in dysfunctional relationships in the past, it's tough to get out of them. I recognize that. It is tough to free yourself from a dysfunctional relationship. But the cool thing is that once you get free of it, you start to recognize it. And you see the same patterns, and you can spot the psychopath before you get into a deep relationship with them because you see the tendencies. Well, frankly, I think you need to do the same thing to the healthcare system because it is a completely psychopathic system. It works with complete callous disregard for you and your health, and the outcomes are pretty clear. Look, if you look at the United States of America right now, only 12% of Americans are metabolically healthy. The majority of people are overweight or obese. We are in bad shape. Yet we spend twice as much money per capita on healthcare than any developed nation on the planet, and we're getting worse results. And you may say, well, that's because there's so many poor people and we're ethnically diverse. Well, there was another study that looked at, okay, let's look at the top 5% economically of all these people in all these developed countries, and let's look at major health outcomes. Let's see who's healthier. And these are people that can afford the best food, the best medical advice, the best treatments. And when you look at us in the United States in our upper 5% health outcomes versus the upper 5% in other developed countries, we are far worse. We're spending a lot of money and we're getting crummy results. And part of that is just because the whole system itself is psychopathic. It works with a complete callous disregard for you and your health. And when I'm talking about the health system, I'm not talking about your doctor alone. I'm talking about the hospitals, big pharma, big food, government, even the media. Everybody is working with a complete disregard for your health. Let's take a look at, just if you don't believe it, maybe, the last 3 years may provide you the best wake-up call that you've ever had, that this is a psychopathic system. Because if you're as old as I am, I'm 60 years old. I was always raised to trust experts, to trust the science, to listen to the media. And breaking that relationship is like leaving a dysfunctional relationship, to realize that they are not looking after me, that the system is rigged to work for their own agenda, not to look after me. So let's take a look at Lord Fauci. This is amazing piece of gaslighting and rewriting of history. I've never seen anything quite like it, but it is fascinating. What remember Fauci was on the cutting edge. He was the science for the last 3 years. If you disagreed with him, you disagreed with science. He was pushing the lockdowns, masking, all this type of stuff. And yet, and he claimed credit when he left office and he left government service. He finally said, I've saved millions of lives through my COVID response. Now, a few years later, all this evidence is mounting that says lockdowns didn't work. They actually hurt people. They probably cost thousands, if not millions of lives. And his response is, I never ordered a lockdown. And he says it with a straight face. And the media, which is part of this overall dysfunctional system, just lets him get away with it because it's a dysfunctional system. It's a psychopathic system. It's amazing how they can gaslight and rewrite history. Think about Justin Trudeau up in Canada, the Prime Minister. who in 2021 berated his fellow citizens, saying that if you did not get a vaccination, you were an evil, racist Nazi. They froze your bank accounts and they made sure you were fired. You could not participate in society if you didn't get the vaccination. Well, a couple of years later, it turns out it did nothing to stop the spread and transmission and didn't prevent anybody from getting COVID. But a lot of people were harmed by it. His response is, sucks to be you. I never forced anybody to get vaccinated. And he took great pride in a recent interview where he said he never forced anybody to get vaccinated. That is a psychopath. That is a psychopathic system that allows them to be able to get away with this type of nonsense. So keep that in mind. I mean, it's kind of like akin to some friends of mine who were told by their doc, that if you don't take a statin, you're going to die and you can't be my patient. Now, that same doctor, if you took the statin, and one of the known side effects of taking statins is permanent muscle wasting. And if you could not walk after taking that statin, they would just look at you and say, well, sucks to be you. That's the type of psychopathic system that we've got. It just keeps on going and going and going. And how do you break that? And that's the hard part, because it really does require a lot of courage to break away from a highly dysfunctional relationship. So here's some of my secret tips. This is what worked for me. And give you the first example of where I started to look at this was when I decided that I wanted to have bariatric surgery. At that time, about 10 years ago, the only thing I knew that for me to get healthy was just to lose weight. That's all I knew at that particular moment. So that's where I was starting off, and I was trying to lose weight using calorie restriction. I was doing the Weight Watchers, and it wasn't working. All of a sudden, I find all these new studies that show that Weight Watchers only has about a 1% success rate for people that need to lose as much weight as I did. Then I find another study that showed from the Cleveland Clinic that showed that bariatric surgery had about a 70% success rate for people who could lose about 70% of their body weight and keep it off for at least 5 years. Okay, that was step one. What does the science say? What do the experts say? Now, I didn't take it at, okay, the Cleveland Clinic says it, so therefore it has to be true. I then started looking into other studies and seeing if it made sense mechanistically, and started learning more about how bariatric surgery worked. Okay, made sense. Then I took the next step. And the next step is trying to figure out what other people's experiences are with that particular model. And I spent a lot of time looking at YouTube videos and blogs on people with their bariatric journeys and people that had bariatric surgery, and I wanted to find people who succeeded, but more importantly, I wanted to find people who failed. Because there are people that did not succeed at bariatric surgery. There's 30% that don't lose the weight. Why? Turns out that most of them thought that bariatric surgery is a magic wand. That, if they just had the surgery, they would lose weight miraculously and they wouldn't have to make any changes. They wouldn't have to exercise and they wouldn't have to change their diet. And those people failed. The people that succeeded, and succeeded wildly, were people that changed their diets, started exercising, etc. And I knew I had a plan at that point. I could see where it would fail and how it would work based on other people's experience. Then I took the step and did it myself. Fast forward a couple of years when I'm starting to gain weight and I'm starting to realize that other people gain some weight back after having bariatric surgery. I realized that I needed to change my diet even further. And that's where I found Dr. Stephen Phinney and the low-carb diet and ketogenic diets. And I started studying that. And again, I didn't take his opinion. I started looking at other people's. And there's a lot of people that, at that time, that were really attacking keto diets, but I didn't think that their science held up when I really dug into it. Basically, it was expert opinion. And the lowest form of evidence is expert opinion, because when they say the words may do this, they also mean may not. So never take an expert opinion. Take a look at what studies they have. And the studies that I kept finding on keto diet when he's really dug into them were actually pretty darn compelling. But then I started looking at, okay, what do other people say about it? How they've done? And I started looking at all these different stories and the people that had failed and the people that succeeded at keto. And the people that failed gave up on it after usually about 6 weeks. And that's a mistake. See, if you're making a lifestyle change, you've really got to commit to it for almost 3 months, because it takes at least 3 months for any type of major dietary lifestyle change to take an effect. So the people that stuck to it for about 3 months or more saw dramatic changes. And finally, and because of the science and the testimony of others, and I kind of weeded out the people that I couldn't find anybody that really failed who had stuck to a keto diet for more than 3 months. All of them had wild success. So I decided to try it, and I remember very distinctly what it was like going through my cabinets, throwing away all my whole grains, pasta, etc., and going to the store, buying my new keto diet. And I looked at that stuff and realized, my God, this is completely goes against everything the government, the media, dietitians, my doctor's been telling me is a healthy way of eating. It is completely opposite. And this is a diet that they kept telling me that if I ate, I would die of a heart attack. So I kind of looked at it, and I remember just shrugging my shoulders, squaring up, and going, okay, I'm either going to die of a heart attack or I'm going to be really healthy. Thankfully, I went ahead and did it. And over the next few years, I got progressively more healthy and off of all my meds and could get out of the medical system. And the reason I bring this up is not so much to pat myself on the back, but to help you to realize something very important about this. Because once I made a decision and tested it, I developed a new sense of courage to trust myself, to pull away from a dysfunctional relationship. And if you've ever been in a dysfunctional relationship in your life and you've pulled out of it, you start to recognize the trends much faster, and you can stop yourself from getting in bad relationships early. You see the same warning signs. Well, that's what happened during COVID to me. I could see the same warning signs that they gave me back when I was changing my diet. So, frankly, I started doing my own research. And I found it fascinating that the media was telling me that there was just too much research going on and people were doing their own research and not trusting Fauci. Well, I was one of those people. And I don't just do any research. I don't listen to... There are internet channels, I'm sure, where some guy tells you that the secret to a healthy living is hopping on your right foot 10 times every day. I don't listen to those people. They're nuts. As soon as I see a video like that, I just go quack and ignore it. But there are people like Dr. John Ioannidis from Stanford University that I do listen to. And Stanford Medical School had a lot of their lectures on immune health available for free on the internet, and I started listening to those things about how to improve your immune health. And it turns out that building muscle and vitamin D were very important. And then I noticed, oh, there's some interesting signals coming from Italy that, where they had the worst part of the pandemic, where there were lots of deaths. They had some of the lowest vitamin D levels on the planet. And then there was a trial that took place in Spain that showed giving people vitamin D, and they broke them up into 2 different groups, people that were in the hospital with severe COVID, and they gave some vitamin D, others not. And the people that got the vitamin D, none of them died. About 6 people that didn't get the vitamin D died who didn't get it. So to me, that's a signal. Hey, I'm out in the sun every day after that, trying to get as much vitamin D as possible. I'm supplementing it too, not going hog wild, but doing a regular supplement of vitamin D, trying to build up that level because that makes sense. And then I posted my results on Facebook, only to be put in Facebook jail for medical disinformation, even though all this stuff kept showing the same signal. It wasn't just me, it was a lot. There was a lot of science that shows that vitamin D improves immune health. So that's what you should do. Frankly, I only made me more and more convinced that we have a dysfunctional health system. And the only way to get stronger is to start doing your own stuff and to regain the critical art of critical thinking. See, and this is in your desire to improve your health. You got to realize you're all alone in this fight. You're it. Nobody is looking after you in the whole system. Big pharma ain't looking after you. Big food ain't. The government is not. Even your own doctor isn't really looking after you as far as getting you healthy. They will take care of your acute problem. If you've got a broken leg, they will fix it. But, as far as getting you healthy, they're not equipped to do it. You're going to have to do it yourself. You're all alone in this. But thankfully, we're all alone in this together. That there is a community, there are people that are helping each other. So if you like this community, if you like this message, if you want to be part of it, please hit the like and subscribe button. That helps me get this message out to more people. The algorithm gods at YouTube do not share this unless other people like it and share it. So the more you share, the more you subscribe, the more you become part of this community, the more people are going to hear this message. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I try to put out a new message every weekday, and I will talk to you later.